The Little Scarlet Flower, Part 2. A great roar of laughter rang through the forest, like thunder rumbling in the heavens, and the beast of the forest, that denizen of the deep, addressed the merchant thus.
I have no need of thy golden coin. I have no room to store my own. Ask no mercy of me. My loyal servants shall tear thee to pieces into little portions. There is but one way out. I will send thee home unscathed, reward thee with untold treasure, grant thee the little scarlet flower, if thou wilt give me thy word as an honest merchant and a pledge in thy hand that thou wilt send in thy place one of thy daughters. She shall come to no harm. She shall live here in honor and freedom, just as thou hast done in my palace. I am lonely here by myself, and I wish to have a companion."
At that, the merchant threw himself upon the damp earth, weeping tears of anguish. When he gazed upon the beast of the forest, that denizen of the deep, and thought of his daughters, good and kind, he cried all the louder, for the beast of the forest, denizen of the deep, was indeed exceedingly terrifying. For a long time the honest merchant lay beating the ground and shedding tears, but presently he spoke in pitiful tones. "Honest sir, beast of the forest, denizen of the deep, but what if my daughters will not come to thee of their own free will? Should I bind them hand and foot and send them to thee by force? And what way should they take to reach thee? It took me 2 years to find my way here. By what places, by what paths, I know not." And the beast of the forest, denizen of the deep, answered the merchant,
"I want no captive maiden here. Let thy daughter come out of love for thee, of her own will and desire. And if thy daughter will not come hither of her own will and desire, then thou must come thyself, and I will have thee put to a cruel death. How to journey hither is not thy concern. I shall give thee this ring from my finger. Whoever puts it on the little finger of his right hand will be wherever he wishes in the twinkling of an eye. I give thee leave to go home for 3 days and 3 nights.
The merchant thought long and hard, and finally made up his mind. "It is better for me to see my daughters again, give them a father's blessing, and, if they are not willing to save me from death, then I must prepare to meet death as a Christian, and return to the beast of the forest, denizen of the deep." He spoke his thoughts aloud, and there was no falseness in his heart. Even so, the beast of the forest, denizen of the deep, knew what was in his mind, saw he was an honest man, and taking no written pledge from him, took the gold ring off his finger and handed it to the merchant. Hardly had the merchant had time to slip it on the little finger of his right hand than he found himself at the gates of his own spacious courtyard, and at that very moment there arrived his richly laden caravans and his loyal servants, bringing treasure and merchandise thrice the value of what he had taken forth. A great commotion arose within the house. His daughters jumped up from their embroidery frames, where they had been embroidering widths of silken cloth with gold and silver thread, and they rushed to embrace their father, hug and kiss him, and the 2 eldest sisters were more doting than the youngest. Presently they saw that something was amiss, that a secret sorrow lay upon their father's heart, and his eldest daughters asked anxiously whether he had lost his great fortune, but the youngest daughter gave no thought to his fortune, and said this to her father:
Your fortune is of no consequence to me. Riches can be obtained again. Do reveal to me your heartfelt grief.
And the merchant made answer to his dear daughters, good and kind. I have not lost my great fortune, but multiplied it 3 or 4-fold. Another sorrow presses upon me that I'll relate to you tomorrow. For today, let us make merry. He ordered that his iron-bound traveling chest be brought in. For his eldest daughter he took out the golden crown, made from the gold of Araby that neither would fire melt nor water rust, set with precious stones. For the second daughter he took out the gift of the mirror of eastern crystal, and for his youngest daughter he took out the gift of the little scarlet flower in a golden vase. The elder daughters were beside themselves with joy, carried off their gifts to their lofty changers to try them out to their heart's delight. But the youngest, beloved daughter trembled violently on seeing the little scarlet flower and began to weep as if her heart would break. Then her father spoke thus. What is it, my dear darling daughter? Why do you not take the flower you so desired? There is none finer in the whole wide world. The youngest daughter took the little scarlet flower, reluctantly it seemed, kissed her father's hand, and shed burning tears of sorrow. By and by the elder daughters hurried in, still rapturous with delight, having tried out their father's presents. Then everyone took their place at oaken tables, covered with white embroidered tablecloths, laden with choice sweetmeats and meats, and they all set to eating and drinking, refreshing themselves and comforting their father with soothing speeches. Towards evening, guests began to arrive, and the merchant's house was soon filled with good friends and kinfolk and lovers of good cheer. Till midnight the company sat and talked, and never had the honest merchant seen so grand an evening of feasting in his home. And he, like all the company, marveled whence everything had come, the gold and silver dishes, and the fantastic viands, such had never graced his house before. In the morning the merchant summoned his eldest daughter, recounted all his adventures from beginning to end, and asked her would she save him from a terrible death by going to live with the beast of the forest, denizen of the deep. But the eldest daughter refused outright, saying,
Let it be that daughter who desired the little scarlet flower, let her go and save her father.
So the honest merchant summoned his second daughter, told her all that had befallen him from beginning to end, and asked her would she save him from a terrible death by going to live with the beasts of the forest, denizen of the deep. But the second daughter refused outright, saying,
Let it be that daughter who desired the little scarlet flower, let her go and save her father.
Then the honest merchant summoned his youngest daughter and began telling his story from beginning to end. Yet even before he had time to finish, the beloved youngest daughter fell upon her knees before him and said,
Give me your blessing, sire, my dear father. I will go to the beast of the forest, denizen of the deep, and live with him. It was for me you fetched the little scarlet flower, and it is my duty to rescue you.
Tears filled the honest merchant's eyes as he embraced his beloved youngest daughter, and he spoke these words to her. Oh, my dear, good, kind daughter, youngest and fondest, may a father's blessing be upon you for saving your father from a cruel death, and for going of your own free will and desire to live with the awesome beast of the forest, denizen of the deep. You will live in his palace in great splendor and ease. But where that palace is, no one knows and no one can tell, for there is no way to it by horse or foot, not even for bounding beast or swift flying bird. We shall hear no word or news of you, nor you of us. I know not how I will live out my days of anguish, never seeing your sweet face, nor hearing your tender words. I part with you forever and ever, as if I were burying alive in the earth. And the beloved youngest daughter answered her father,
Weep not, grieve not, sire, my dear father. I shall live in wealth and ease. I fear not the beast of the forest, denizen of the deep, and I shall serve him truly and loyally, fulfill his every lordly wish, and, I pray, he may take pity upon me. Mourn me not as dead while I yet live. One day, God grant, I shall return to you.
The honest merchant would not be comforted by her words. He wept and sobbed as though his heart would break. The elder sisters came in haste, their wailing filling the whole house. So sorry they were for their dear younger sister. Yet the youngest sister displayed no sign of sorrow, neither wept nor sighed, but made ready for her long uncertain journey. And she took with her the little scarlet flower in its golden vase. 3 days and nights soon passed, and the time came for the merchant to part with his beloved youngest daughter. He kissed and embraced her, bathed her in hot tears, and pronounced his parental blessing upon her. Then, taking from an iron-bound cask the ring of the beast of the forest, denizen of the deep, he put the ring on the little finger of his daughter's right hand, and she vanished in an instant with all her belongings. She found herself in the palace of the beast of the forest, denizen of the deep, in a high stone chamber. She was lying on a bed of carved gold with crystal feet. Under her was a mattress of swan's down, and over her a coverlet of gold brocade. It was as if she had lived there all her life, and lain down to sleep and awakened. Sweet music played, such as she had never heard before. She rose from the bed of down, and saw all her belongings, and the little scarlet flower in its golden vase there in the chamber, all set out on tables of green copper malachite. The chamber was richly furnished, with much finery and all kinds of wondrous things. There were chairs to sit on, couches to lay on, garments to wear, and mirrors to see herself in. One whole wall was a mirror, another was of gold, a third of silver, and the fourth of elephant and mammoth ivory, studded with precious gems.
This must be my bedchamber,
she thought to herself. Wishing to investigate the whole palace, she went forth to examine all the lofty chambers, and she walked for a long time, marveling at all the wonders that she saw. Each chamber was lovelier than the last, and all more beautiful than the honest merchant her dear father had described. Then, taking the dear little scarlet flower from its golden vase, she went out to the verdant gardens, where the birds sang her lovely songs, and the trees and bushes and flowers waved their little heads and seemed to bow before her. The fountains of water spouted higher, and the clear springs babbled louder as she approached. And she came upon the high place, the grassy mound on which the honest merchant had picked the little scarlet flower, more lovely than anything in the whole wide world. She took the little scarlet flower from its golden vase, wishing to plant it in its former place. But it flew from her hand and attached itself to its former stem, blossoming more resplendently than ever before. She was much amazed at this miracle of miracles, wonder of wonders, but was happy for her little scarlet flower of which she was so fond. Then she returned to her palace chambers and, in one of them, found a table set for her, and she thought to herself, "It appears the beast of the forest, denizen of the deep, is not angry, but will be to me a gracious master." No sooner had the thought entered her head than words of fire appeared on the wall of white marble.
I am not thy master, but thine obedient slave. Thou art the mistress, and I shall gladly fulfill thine every wish, thine every command.
She read the words of fire, and then they vanished instantly from the wall of white marble as if they had never been. Then it came into her head to write a letter to her father and give him tidings of her. Hardly had the thought occurred to her than she saw a gold pen and ink arid paper lying before her, and she wrote this letter to her dear father and her beloved sisters.
Weep not for me, nor grieve, for I am living like a princess in the palace of the beast of the forest, denizen of the deep. I neither see nor hear him, but he writes to me in words of fire on a wall of white marble, and he knows my every thought and instantly fulfills my every wish. He calls me the mistress, and will not have me call him my lord.
Sincerely had she written the letter and sealed it with a seal. Then the letter vanished from her hands and sight as if it had never been. The music began to play even more tunefully than before, as sweetmeats and mead appeared on the table in vessels of burnished gold. Though she had never in her life dined all by herself, she sat down cheerfully at the table, ate and drank and refreshed herself, enjoying the dulcet music. After dinner, having ate her fill, she lay down to rest, and the music grew softer and more distant that it might not disturb her slumbers. When she had slept, she rose with light heart, ready to walk in the gardens once more, for before dinner she had not managed to see more than half of them, or to behold all the wonders they contained. All the trees, bushes, and flowers bent down before her, and the ripe fruit, pears and peaches and juicy apples, tempted her to taste them. After walking for some time, till evening was nigh, she returned to her lofty chambers, and there she saw a table laid with all manner of sweetmeats and meats, all most excellent. After supper, she went back to the chamber of white marble, where she had read the words of fire on the wall, and again she saw words inscribed themselves on the very same wall.
Is my mistress pleased with her gardens and chambers, with the hospitality and attention?
And the merchant's lovely young daughter answered in a happy voice,
Call me not thy mistress, be thou forever my good master, kind and gracious. I shall never disobey thy will, and I thank thee for all thy hospitality. Nowhere in the whole wide world are there such magnificent, lofty changes and verdant gardens. Why then should I not be pleased? Never in my life have I seen such wonders. I still cannot believe it is all true. But there is one thing. I fear to sleep alone. Nowhere in thy lofty chambers is there a living soul but me.
And these words of fire echoed upon the wall.
Have no fear, my lovely mistress, nor shalt thou sleep alone, for thy handmaiden, loyal and true, awaits thee now. Many human souls dwell within these chambers, only thou dost not see or hear them. They all watch over thee, as I do, day and night. We shall not suffer the wind to blow on thee, or a speck of dust to settle on thee.
Then the merchant's lovely young daughter went off to her bedchamber, and there she found her handmaiden, loyal and true, standing at her bed. The girl was half dead with fright, but rejoiced to see her mistress, kissed her lily-white hands, and embraced her dainty feet. Her mistress, too, was pleased to see her and sat questioning her about her own dear father, her elder sisters, and about her other maids and servants. and then she herself began to describe her own adventures. Thus it was that the merchant's lovely daughter came to live and prosper in her new home. Each day, new expensive robes were laid out for her, such priceless finery that words cannot describe or a pen depict. End of part 2.